for 2. Kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for 2. Sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past, any and all I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking, so what are we talking? What kind of alignment and running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping and woo. This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 261 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. Of course, we are part of the Going for Two Live podcast network, and we're here every Wednesday night on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch on all major podcast networks. And, of course, we're in the Going for Two app for iOS and Android. If you are on Twitter, unfortunately, we cannot see your comments, so go find us over at YouTube. Just search Going for Two Live, and then you can comment in the chat room. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Mr. Ryan Searfoss. What's up, Ryan?
No, just excited for tonight's show and ready to talk something other than rookies for a change.
I was just going to say, we've been talking rookies for months. Yeah, exactly. All right, my next guest, he doesn't need any introduction. Of course, ESPN's Mike Clay. You can follow him on Twitter at Mike Clay NFL. What's up, Mike?
Oh, too much, guys. Too much. As you guys just said, we just came out of the draft, right? So we've been swamped for months, and now we have the schedule release coming out tomorrow. Of course, we're doing this on Wednesday night. Schedule comes out on the 12th. So going to be busy tomorrow, recovering from that and recapping that. And then, it's kind of on to the season. Then we have pretty much all the information we need to really set up the rankings and have a plan for 2022 fantasy drafts.
Yes, sir. Good stuff. All right, so we got a jam-packed show tonight. We're going to do some stock up, stock down on some veterans. We did the stock up, stock down with some rookies last week. We'll do veterans, and then we'll get some listener questions there to finish the show out. The chat roll is lighting up here, so I'll get some stuff thrown across the screen there. But let's go ahead and jump right into the 101s.
And now, the five 101s.
All right, the way this works, I'm going to give 5 non-football related categories, Mike, and you're going to give me your 101 for each category. The first one we have here is your 101 adult beverage.
Yeah, so look, I there's only one way I can go with this, and it's Yuengling Lager, of course. I mean, I grew up in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, the home to the oldest brewery in America. I grew up, didn't grow up drinking lager, but once I was of age, I started drinking Yuengling, and my dad knows Dick, the owner, very well. Actually, I have some signs hanging up that he signed for me in this man cave that I'm in right now. So it's got to be Yuengling Lager. That's my go-to. It's my hometown.
Nice.
It's awesome because if you're in Pennsylvania and you can ask for just a lager and they know what to give you.
Yeah, see, I still make that mistake. I'm in Connecticut now. I still make that mistake. I say I'll take a lager, and they look at me like, "Yeah, what kind of lager?" We have 47 of those, I still, but back home in Pennsylvania, you're right. You just say lager. You got it.
Yeah. I'm here. It's easy.
Yeah. Yuengling's my go-to as well. Whenever I'm going somewhere to a party or whatever, it's always grab the Yuengling. It's definitely my go-to. I'm in Virginia, just south of Washington D.C. So I don't get the benefit of just calling it lager, but I do love me some Yuengling. All right, next one up, your 101.
All right, so you broke up a little there, but I know what the question is, right? My number one duo. So. You know what? It's funny. I had to think about this one for a second. You told me in advance, and I've been really. I'm gonna give it 2. First of all, I've been really into F1 lately. So I got into I'm a big NASCAR guy, as you can see. The sign behind me. Got into F1. Watched the Netflix show. Been watching the races, doing projections now, all that kind of stuff. So I was gonna say Max Verstappen and Horner. I mean, those guys are ridiculous. Love them both. I I'm still trying to figure out who my guy is going to be. But I'm really kind of attached to those guys so far. They're just so impressive, so incredibly good at their job. But I know that's not really in the spirit of the question. I think I'm going to throw it back a little further. So the one I'm going to go with, and I think maybe you guys could appreciate this, I'm going to go to the show 24. It's one of the best ever, just ahead of its time, and go with Jack Bauer and Chloe O'Brien. So if you've seen that show, that's one of the best duos of all time. So shout out to Kiefer Sutherland and Jack Bauer, obviously Chloe O'Brien. That was a great time, the 24 era on TV when, back in the early days of Twitter, even football Twitter, we used to watch that together. Everyone would kind of get together and tweet about the latest 24 while it was going on. It was a little different than the binging of these days. So that's what I'm going with.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great choice. That's an awesome choice. All right. 101 fictional character you'd want to meet in real life.
Yeah. Another one. I'm going to go with their recent TV show. Go with Miriam Maisel. Anybody watch The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
It's on my list. I haven't gotten to it yet.
Come on. See? Miriam's awesome. So once you watch it, you'll understand that. She's just seems like just an awesome character, funny, and it's obviously Rachel Brosnahan just kills the character. One of the best shows of ever. Honestly, that show is incredibly well produced, well written, well acted. So and she's an awesome character. So
good stuff.
Go with that. Go with Miriam.
Good deal. I'm gonna have to add that one to my list. I'm not a big TV guy, so I got to put those on my list in order to go back and watch those. All right. 101 supporting character from a movie or TV show.
Yeah. So again, I could have went with the recent show. I just finished Ozark, so I was going to go with Julia Garner because she should win every single award for supporting actress this year. She should just clean up for sure. She's incredible. But again, I'm going to go deeper here. I'm going to go with the sleeper, one of my favorite underrated supporting actresses of all time, from The Middle. So again, if you've watched The Middle on ABC, Susu Heck, one of my favorite characters of all time.
Nice.
Eden Scher just killed that character. She was so good in that role. They just made her do so many bizarre, ridiculous things that she crushed it every time. She always had me laughing. So always thought that was a really underrated character. Never really got much award love, but shout out to Eden Scher for sure.
Good stuff. I love the deep dive there. All right, last one here. A question you could ask and be given the 100% absolute truth on.
I mean, the meaning of life, right? I mean, that's the obvious answer. But really, I mean, in my job, the 2022 fantasy football breakout player would be nice. That's what I would want to know.
Nice. Yeah, there you go. That would be nice to know ahead of time. Good stuff.
That pays my bills, right, guys?
Yeah. Exactly. If you can predict that one, you're good to go. All right. Let's get into some football stuff.
News and notes from around the league.
News and Notes is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, home to the biggest best ball tournament ever. Their Best Ball Mania 3 tournament has over $10 million in the prize pool, with $2 million going to first. Get the Underdog Fantasy app for iOS or Android. Use our promo code GF2 to get a deposit match up to $100. Leagues start for as low as $3, including our going for 2 leagues. What are you waiting for? Get the app, use promo code GF2, get your deposit match, and start winning. All right, not much in the way of news lately, but we do have a few notes here I wanted to bring up. First one here is Sony Michel signed to the Dolphins. That backfield is pretty clouded there. Mike, let me go to you first on what your thoughts on the Sony Michel signing for the Dolphins is.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's crowded, right? I'm not sure if someone like Myles Gaskin will make the team. There's not going to be 4 guys involved. You just don't see that. So it'll probably be a duo with maybe a third guy kind of mixed in. I think they'll probably come out week 1, assuming everyone's healthy, which is a big ask considering this group. But yeah, I would think Raheem Mostert, probably looking at maybe 40% of the carries. I mean, he's only had a handful of games in his career where he's handled over half of the carries. So, and he's never really been involved in the passing game. So I think he kind of gets a little edge in terms of carrying the football. Chase Edmonds, obviously the passing down specialist. Not sure if there's going to be a huge target share there for him, just because they have a good group of wide receiver. Mike Gesicki, who's their franchise tag player. So a lot of mouths to feed. I don't think the backs are going to be super busy in that offense. It'll come down to what Tua wants to do if he dumps it off a lot. But and then you'll have Sony Michel probably mixing in with the occasional carry, right? So Not a lot to like in terms of standalone value from really any of these guys. Edmonds is the guy I would want the most as maybe a deep league, PPR option, 12-team league, something like that. But otherwise, not too attracted to this group. But again, everybody feels that way. So somebody's going to be a value. You can throw some late round darts at a Mostert, maybe a Michelle. If Mostert goes down, Michelle maybe steps into a big 15 carries as a ball carrier kind of thing. So we'll just see how ADP falls.
Yeah, you kind of broke that down there with Mostert. I'm a 49ers fan, so he hasn't been a guy that can carry the load, but he's also a guy that doesn't need to carry the load to be fancy relevant because he can break that big play any time. What are your thoughts on this backfield?
I don't really like any parts of it. Like, I think Sony could maybe steal some touchdowns, but outside of maybe best balls, I don't want any part. If, like, we're talking, like he said, super late, 12th, 13th round on, and somebody falls, yes, I'll take a dart throw, but it's gross.
Yeah, it's definitely like a zero RB kind of team. It's definitely a team that you're taking zero RB. If you're going zero RB, you're probably taking one of these guys at least and hoping that you hit on one of them because, I agree. I think this is a murky backfield to say the least. And I agree. I think Myles Gaskins will end up being the odd man out, or if he does make the team, he'll be a healthy scratch on most weeks if they're all healthy. He just doesn't offer it as much as his other guys do, I don't believe. So I'm with you on that. I'm gonna go to you first on this next one here, Brian. Tom came out a week ago, I think, that he has a few remaining hurdles before he can return from an ankle injury. I mean, this ankle injury seems to be dragging on forever. Are you worried if you're a Thomas owner?
Yes, but I mean, like, if you own Thomas in Dynasty, it doesn't really change. Like, he's on your bench, you're not trading him because you're not going to get anywhere near the value if he plays. But yes, it's worrying because we want him back, and we have no idea what the hurdles is because his ankle's been hurt for way too long. We're coming on 18 months now where he's been hurt.
By the time we start the season, they'll be probably right in that range. Yep.
Like, that's really concerning. He's not really a spring chicken anymore. So I'm gonna be optimistic and hope for some camp news soon. But as now, I'm just holding on and probably just treating him like an old jalopy car and just go until the wheels fall off.
Gotcha. Now, Mike, let me ask you on the opposite side here. Let's say you don't own Michael Thomas. Are you trying to use this news to go buy low on him, or do you not think he's going to be the player he once was?
Nah, he's 29, so I'm not going out of my way. I mean, I'd have to get quite the discount to be interested in making that investment in a dynasty or a keeper format. It's definitely worrying. Again, he missed most of 2 seasons ago, all of last season, and now we're not hearing positive reports. And by the way, this could change. Maybe in a few weeks they're like, you know what, that's not necessarily true. He's in great shape. He's ready to go for week 1, and everything's great. So I'm not overreacting to this by any means. I didn't touch the projection yet. But obviously that's the way the offseason goes, right? Sometimes you're a little higher on a guy, sometimes a little lower. It depends on kind of the breeze, the reports, the beat, whatever it's saying. So we're down a little bit right now. That's our feeling on him. We'll just kind of have to see how this plays out. But certainly Chris Olave looking great in his first year, even aggressive quarterback. They have a really good defense, which could keep their games competitive, but he has a chance to be a huge part of this wide receiver room. There's a reason they took him in the first round. So regardless of Thomas, he's in good position. But if Thomas is out, I mean, we could be talking wide receiver 2 numbers right out of the gate.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I was going to mention that to Ryan. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Olave? I mean, even if Michael Thomas plays, Olave has got to be on top of your list there for a guy you want to have in that offense.
Yeah, I love Olave right now, and I feel like he's not getting some of the hype that we're seeing out of these other rookie receivers right now because it's not viewed as hot of a spot. But like you said, he could easily get wide receiver 2 numbers. 100+ targets is in the very good realm of possibilities for him. And I'm on board with that, especially with his speed and the way he can create separation and make easy throws for Jameis. I think it's a nice matchup for him.
And we know James will definitely force feed whoever his receivers are. We saw it in Tampa. So, I mean, we don't got to worry about that. He's not worried about throwing interceptions. So he's just going to force feed whoever's out there. So I love a Chris Olave as well. All right, that's it for the news and notes. Like I said, not much going on. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our stock up, stock down.
Stock up, stock down.
All All right, we'll start here with our stock up guys. And the first one on the list, I think, is probably one of the biggest stock up guys, quarterback Jalen Hurts. Obviously gets a new weapon with Jay Brown, and of course he already has Devonta Smith. Everything else is going on with that offense there. What are your thoughts on Jalen Hurts, Mike, and what do you expect from him this season?
Yeah, I mean, I have high expectations from a fantasy standpoint. I think the only concern you really have with him is, does he hit a slump where he's really struggling and gets benched and they decide to take a look at Gardner Minshew? You know, I think that's still a possibility. I don't think that we know for sure Hurts is the real deal. I think last year's an example of that, right? They leaned toward the pass for the first half of the season. Now, granted, the opponents were tougher, but didn't work out. They shifted to an extremely run-heavy offense. And they won games, snuck into the playoffs, but of course, the competition in the second half was super easy and allowed them to run the ball. You know, we saw him exposed a little bit in the playoffs. Now, again, it was a really good Tampa Bay team, but they were behind. He had to throw the ball, and it did not go well. So there's some concerns there, but at the same time, I think they have made it pretty clear their commitment to him. So I feel pretty strongly that he'll start most of the season, if not all of it. And there's still upside here. And obviously, when he starts, you pretty much have to rank him as a top 5 player, right? I mean, he was just so good with his legs last season, almost 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's the primary goal line back. He dominates in that department. And also, I don't necessarily think they're going to be super run heavy, because you don't go trade for AJ Brown if you plan to just run the ball between the tackles every time, right? So I think that opens up more pass attempt opportunities and also more scramble opportunities, which we love in fantasy. So, I'm high on him. I think that on a points per game basis, you kind of have to view him as a borderline or a secure top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually traded him away last season when he was, doing his thing. And my thought was, they talked about placing him. It seems like every couple of weeks, it's like, are they going to replace him? And he's one of those quarterbacks that are great for fantasy, but not necessarily a great NFL quarterback, kind of like Jameis was with Tampa Bay. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Hurts here? Are you buying that he's going to be a top 5 quarterback? Are you comfortable with that and taking him as a top 5 quarterback, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with him. We're talking he only hit his first 16 games starting in the middle of last year. So it's almost not quite a rookie year, but basically his first year starting. He was throwing to outside of Devonta Smith and Goddard. I mean, we have 60 targets for Quez Watkins, another close to 60 for Jalen Reagor. That's not great. Now we're putting AJ Brown to just lock that up. I feel great there. He was 6th in points per game. The combination of that improved offense with his running ability, I'm really comfortable with it. And if he's not working out, that means that team's not going to have a good record, and they might just wheel with it until they can get a QB next year. But I'd be willing to take the chance now with what he has around him.
Yeah, a friend of the show, Ryan McDowell, who actually will be on the show next week, put out a lot last year, QB1 games and how many each QB had. And I think Jalen Hurts had the most QB1 games last season. And I think he was like 2 or 3 or 4 games ahead of the next guy behind him. I mean, he was basically cranking out QB1 games. Now, a lot of that was in junk time. A lot of that was in the second half when they're down, he gets those rushing touchdowns. But still, for fantasy purposes, I think Jalen Hurts is definitely someone I want on my team. I'm worried about his long-term value in Dynasty. Is he going to be able to hold that job down? I guess this year will really tell, because they kind of put the pieces around him now. Now we got to see if he can and lead them to some victories here. Let's stick here with Mike, and let's look at Zack Wilson and what the Jets did, surrounding him with a ton of talent as well. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Zack Wilson?
Yeah, look, really rough rookie season for sure, whether it's statistically or on tape. I mean, if you watch the highlight reel, he did have some nice plays, and that's really what you want to see from first-year quarterback, because bad efficiency, not really a red flag, honestly. I mean, you could just look at the list of standout quarterbacks right now, and a lot of them had pretty poor rookie season efficiency. Not everyone could be Justin Herbert, right? So I'm not too worried about that. There's definitely an opportunity here for him to make a leap. The supporting cast is obviously much better. And it's not just Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Laken Tomlinson and, the additions. It's also the fact that the guys around him last year, for the most part, were rookies. I mean, you had Michael Carter in the backfield, and you had Elijah Moore, a wide receiver. I mean, he was dealing with a lot of youth. And those guys will be a year further into their career, as will he. So I think definitely breakout potential. If there's a red flag here, it is, speaking of the schedule coming out tomorrow, the Jets, from a fantasy perspective, the schedule does look pretty tough. I was comparing kind of him to Trevor Lawrence, and Lawrence's schedule looks great. The Jags schedule is fantastic this season. Not so much for the Jets. It does look really tough. And part of that's the division, of course, playing Buffalo twice, New England's defense. We'll see that they always overachieve. Miami's is better. So really tough schedule for Wilson. That concerns me, but I do like the guys that they put around him. And if he's the real deal, that's always the key. Much like Joe Burrow last year, comes down to, is the guy the real deal? If Wilson is, the Jets are, they're going to play much better than people think.
Yeah, Ryan, I'm gonna go to you. The Jets, were sort of regarded as winning the draft this year, and Zack Wilson basically is the key if they can win in the actual season. Now, give me your thoughts on Zack Wilson and kind of where you think he might fall. Like if you're doing a startup in Dynasty, where are you taking Zack Wilson?
I'm not sure it's ATP, but I'm all in on Zack Wilson this year for like a later round pick. We're talking, I know he had his struggles that we talked about, but 6 of his 11 interceptions were in weeks 2 and 3. Like he finished the season off on the last with 8 touchdowns, total touchdowns and 1 interception. Obviously, like Mike said, his offense improved drastically around him. Everything's there looking for a nice bounce back. I don't know how high he'll finish, but I'm comfortable with him as a QB2 of my team, starting him in good matchups come there because the upside's there. He has the arm, he has athleticism, he has nice weapons around him. Corey Davis will be coming back, adding a little bit more to it. There's a lot to like there for what the Jets are doing, and they're all in building around him. And by the way, they're showing the faith in him. I'm following the tea leaves, and I'm kind of following suit.
Yeah, I'm with you, both of you on though. I think Zack Wilson is a guy you could probably get him obviously cheaper than some of the other quarterbacks that are coming into their second year. For a guy like Zack Wilson with all the weapons that he has there, I do think that he has the opportunity to succeed for sure. Let's move to receiver, and I'm gonna go to you first, Ryan, because you are the Ravens fan here among us. I know we talked a little bit about this when it happened, but your thoughts on Rashad Bateman and his outlook this season?
I'm very excited for Bateman. I know he had a slow year last year, only having like 560 yards or so, but we're talking he had no offseason because he was coming off his injury. He didn't get to work with Lamar. By the time he did get up and running really well, it moved over to Huntley, and he was still 3rd in targets on that team behind Andrews and Hollywood Brown. Now this year, after Andrews, it's him. The targets are going to be there, and they went to him often on 3rd downs last year. He converted a high percentage of them, and he had very good hands. We know he has athleticism. There's a lot to like there, and if they add somebody else with the Landry room or something, that can only help more, getting another veteran in there. But the targets are going to be there. I think the opportunity is going to be there for him to shine, and we have the draft capital to go with it. So I'm all in. But again, that might be my fandom a little bit.
Yeah, Mike, I want to get your thoughts on this too, because I was doing some research on Bateman. I was writing an article for Fantasy Pros, and I was looking at the run-heavy offense that the Ravens run, but I looked at their pass stats, and they had the 9th most pass attempts. They weren't exactly super run-heavy, but they went 2 tight ends in the draft. They got some offensive linemen. Do you think they go back to that run-heavy approach? Do you think there's still enough targets to go around to support Bateman as a top receiver?
Yeah, and last year going into the season, there was reports they were going to try to balance out the offense, and that's what they did, right? So they do run a lot of plays. They called it balanced offense, and that's why they ended up above average in pass attempts. So not to mention that they were overwhelmed with injuries, especially defensively, and they had to throw the ball. They were trailing, right? So which is different for them. I think that they are going to go back to running it more. I think they told us that with their personnel moves, getting rid of Marquise Brown and the decisions they made on draft day. I don't know that they'll be like Eagles or Titans level of run heavy, but they might be. We've seen that before from them. But I do, again, expect them to lean more on the run. But to the point you guys just made, there's no Marquise Brown, right? They don't really have anyone else. It's Mark Andrews, and then it's Rashad Bateman. They don't throw to the running backs. It's a staple of Greg Roman's offense, not throwing to the running back. So Bateman is going to play a big role. I have him over 900 yards. I have him scoring 5 touchdowns, over 75 catches. And that's not a ceiling by any means. It's a first-round pick, a guy with a ton of talent. And, you kind of mentioned this. The guy last year had over 500 yards and 46 catches. He only played 4 full games, right? He was a situational player most of the year. He played the final 4 games of the season, playing 90+% of the snaps. And there was no Lamar Jackson for those games. And he was dealing with Marquise Brown. And he was dealing with Mark Andrews just soaking up a ton of production and targets during that stretch. So, he still had 3 80+ yard games last season. There would be more hype for him if he scored more touchdowns, but that wasn't his fault. He had 3 end zone targets for the season. That's why he only scored 1 touchdown. Just drastically low usage near the goal line. That's something that'll change, I think, going forward as well. So only 22, great opportunity, great talent, great pedigree, great offense, a healthier offense. What's not to like here?
Yeah, I definitely hope you guys are right, because last year on my rookie draft, I took Bateman over guys like Waddle and Devonta Smith. So I'm really hoping Bateman does have his breakout season this year, because I'll look like a much smarter person than I actually am if I can hit on that one. All right, let's look at some stock down players. A couple of veterans that their team sort of drafted their eventual replacement, or at least it seems that way. And we'll go first here with Devin Singletary, who I was on previous to the draft, thinking that he finally kind of hit his stride last year towards the end of the season. And now, of course, they go out and draft a running back. I'll go to you first, Ryan. Give me your thoughts on Singletary, and then with James Cook being there, what your thought the split will be there.
I think we're going to see a pretty nasty committee there right now with him. Zack Wilson still going to get some of that short yardage carries within the 10. We'll see Singletary get that 20-20 work. And I think Cook, they're going to try to move around more and use in different ways. I don't feel great about it, because I think Cook hurt Singletary in the passing game, which is the biggest part for, especially in PPR. I don't love it. I think we kind of missed that window to sell him for a good price. There's kind of a hold at the point, but I don't feel good about him at all.
What are your thoughts, Mike, on Singletary and James Cook and that dynamic there with the Bills, which we all thought James Cook was a good landing spot for the Bills, but Singletary kind of hurts his value a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely hurts him a little bit, but he also wasn't, super reliant on his passing game work, I guess is probably the best way to put it. He's going to lose a little there, but he was their primary ball carrier, right? He was getting a huge chunk of the carries down the stretch last season. This is a really high-scoring offense. So if he still gets 200 carries and primary goal line work and scores 7 to 9 rushing touchdowns and still have him projected for about 30 catches, that'll be fine. That'll be enough to at least provide flex value, maybe even flirt with RB2 value, depending on, his share of the touchdowns. Cook, I agree. Great landing spot. It's just a matter of what his ceiling is. Is he going to be a guy that ends up being a 12 to 15 carry guy and gets 5-6 targets, and is used like a DeAndre Swift, or is he always going to be a situational guy and be like Naheem Hines or JD McKissick, something like that? We just don't know that for sure yet, but I do expect him to be their primary pass catching back this season, something they obviously made an attempt to add during the offseason. So, if Singletary's ADP falls enough, I might be interested. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, that's a good call. And you're right there. They tried to sign JD McKissick, and of course he went back to Washington. So James Cook was their sort of alternative to fill that spot. So they definitely wanted a pass catching running back. So hopefully that spells good things for James Cook. All right, Ryan, we're going to talk about your boy. I know how much you love this guy. Mr. Rashad Penny, of course, again, another guy that kind of came on late in the season, was able to stay healthy for once. But then they go out and draft her, long term, he might be the answer, but in the short term there, what do you think about Rashad Penny?
Short term, I'm going to follow the camp to see who's starting and who's going to be getting playing time right away. Because we with Pete Carroll, we've seen that draft capital isn't the most important thing. So I'm going to wait and see that way to see how they're working that. But Penny's just been so beat up. Every year there's been something. His hamstring last year, his knee the year before, his ACL the year before that. Like, it's every year. So he kind of has the same outlook he always does, with just kind of a wait and see, because he's always had Chris Carson compete with, and now bringing Walker, who's healthy, electric, and should take over that backfield. I'm not loving Penny, but I think he is going to be someone like we talked about before. He's going to drop in drafts and be a place where he's a really good value.
Yeah, I agree there. Mike, real quick, give me your thoughts on Rashad Penny, and then talk about Michael Carter and with Breece Hall being there as well.
Yep. Penny, a lot of the value in the Seattle backfield will depend on the health of Chris Carson. Does he play? Does he not? We have to keep an eye on that. It's just, we don't know. No one knows. Pete Carroll doesn't know. So if Carson's there, it's going to, they're going to use three guys. Kenneth Walker might be, barely see the field early on. But if Carson's out and Penny acts up, gets hurt again, Walker will be a must start in fantasy. So again, you want these guys on your bench. You don't necessarily want to be in a position where you want to start them. So, we'll see how that progresses. As for Carter, I do think he'll sustain a role in passing situations. He just played too well last season not to. Breece Hall's super young, so I think there is a role there for Carter, but no doubt about it. He could have been flirting with RB2 value. If not for Hall, now his ceiling is capped until he has a new team, right? Hall's the guy, and he's terrific. So Carter, basically, again, to use the same comparisons, J.D. McKissick, Naheem Hines, he's kind of in that category. James White, right? That's a ceiling, essentially. It's obviously crushing for his dynasty and short-term value.
Yeah, I agree. Real quick, Ryan, I want to get some of these listener questions here, but give me your thoughts real quick on Michael Carter and the Breece Hall breakdown.
Oh, no, there's nothing really that I can say that on to, but he's going to be a third down back and provide value in maybe games where they're going to be playing behind, and you have to pray you get right on the matchup where they're in passing situations. But it's not real confident in him anymore, even though I love the player.
Yeah, agreed. I was buying him cheap before the draft, and now I'm stuck with him in a lot of my leagues. So hopefully he has a little bit of value. All right, we got a ton of listener questions, and I want to get to those real quick before Mike gets out of here. Let's go ahead and hit those.
Go ahead. Ask me anything.
All right, first one we got here, and I think he's actually in the chat here. I'm going to probably mess his last name up. Jamie Parag. He wants to know who has the better situation as far as fantasy goes and who will be relevant sooner between these two tight ends, Greg Dulcich, is that how you say his last name, or Jelani Woods?
Yeah, I'd go Jelani Woods there just because it's the Frank Reich offense. I mean, you look at Reich's 8 seasons as a coach or coordinator, 26% tight end target share. That is a huge number. He's had none that were below 20%. Mo Alley-Cox, not really the long-term answer. So I think Woods, terrific athlete. We're talking 99th percentile athlete. So if he gets an opportunity and develops well, I think he'll get a shot in a good offense. Albert O's looking pretty good in Denver. I think he's going to keep Dulcich at bay. So at least for a little while. Again, both are on a similar trajectory, but if I had to pick, I'd go Woods.
All right. I'm going to give this one to you, Ryan. This one's from Tom Keating. Should dynasty managers copy the pattern set by the NFLs this year and downgrade the rookie quarterbacks, even in Superflex? Meaning if you have the 101 Superflex, maybe you don't take one this year. And I think we pretty much talked about this on the show already. We're not taking one at 101. So I'm going to change the question a little bit. Where are you taking the first quarterback in Superflex?
Not in the first round. I know it's against common convention because quarterbacks are so hard to find. There's a limited supply, but man, there's so much talent at wide receiver. You have the top 2 running backs you want to lock in. I mean, the earliest I would think is maybe 11. Maybe 10 or 11 is probably the highest I do it, but that's only if I'm desperate. If not, I'll wait until the second round. I love Kenny Pickett and all, but that's not that. This is like where we're taking Davis Mills last year.
Yeah,
I
agree.
Starting, I just don't feel confident. I'm not reaching for a guy who I don't think is going to be a QB1.
I agree. Mike, do you agree with that in your rookie drafts? Are you looking at quarterback in the late first, early second? Or
yeah, late first for Pickett. The other guys I'm not even interested in. I mean, if you can't,
agreed.
They're day 2 quarterbacks, day 3 quarterbacks do not pan out in the NFL. Just look at the list of all the guys that have been drafted there. Preconceived notions of this draft were that these were first round quarterbacks. The NFL told us a different story. We need to listen to what the NFL is saying and adjust our expectations for these players. They are day 2 and day 3 players. You want to take a late flyer like you would a Davis Mills or Kirk Cousins or any of the guys that, the few guys that did pan out, go for it, but not ahead of first round, second round wide receivers, high end running backs, even some of the tight ends. No, thanks.
Yeah, I'm with y'all there as well. I've done a few drafts already, and I haven't ended up with any of the quarterbacks in any of my Superflex leagues at all because I've not taken them anywhere that I think that they are probably going to go in a lot of drafts. Next one is from Lucas Gilbert, Mike, and he wants to know, are the FAs worth a stash on taxi squads? And I'm assuming he means actual NFL undrafted free agents, not rookie draft free agents. So any of those guys that signed after the draft, any of those worth stashing on taxi squads right now?
Yeah, I mean, most of my rookie rankings, and I went deep, 70 plus guys, whatever it may be, were drafted. The only guy that really stands out that's in the middle of the, the rankings or, maybe fourth round of a rookie draft, I forget where I have him exactly, is Justin Ross. I mean, come on, the guy, it's all health related. That's the concern. If the guy's healthy, he has an insanely high ceiling. He was pretty much the number one prospect a couple of years ago at that position, but obviously the neck surgery has raised some red flags. He did play last year. The team was terrible. It really hurt him. And maybe he wasn't fully himself, but he's in Kansas City. They have a wide open wide receiver depth chart. If he makes that team and he's healthy and he's his old self, I mean, the sky is the limit. So no doubt about it, Justin Ross is the guy that'd be on my radar.
Yeah, he definitely was one of those guys that rose up some boards. I mean, he didn't get drafted. I had him ranked pretty decently high, and then he getting drafted at all. I dropped him, and then he got signed with the Chiefs, which is a great landing spot as well. So I agree. I think Justin Ross is one of those guys you do want to stash. Any guy on your list, Ryan, that you want to stash as an undrafted free agent?
I mean, that's really the big one. There's not many I've been targeting because we're still getting good guys in the fourth round and guys who've made teams in the fourth round of rookie drafts. So there's nothing I'm really shooting for other than I said that random Justin Ross pick.
Yeah, I think there's one guy that I've been targeting, and it's not really necessarily based on his talent, just based on the fact that he's got a short path to potential starting minutes. Is Snoop Connor for Jacksonville, because James Robinson's probably not going to get the start early on there. He's not going to be able to play. I think he's going to be out for a while. Travis Etienne's also coming off another season injury. I think he'll be 100% by the season starts, but still, he's coming off a major injury. I think Connor has a chance to see some meaningful snaps at some point this season. So he's somebody I'm basically getting free in most of my drafts and put them on my taxi squad and hoping something happens eventually. All right, let's do one last one here, Mike, and then we'll get to our forgotten fantasy player. This one's directly for you. This one's from Ryan Furlong. He wants to know what your process is for compiling stat projections for each team and how you kind of go about it.
We're supposed to be wrapping up, guys. I mean, this is going to take a while. I could talk about this all day. This is look in a nutshell. I mean, it's a year-round process. If you follow me on Twitter, I have projections pretty much year-round. That's because I have a model I built over a decade ago that I'm constantly working on updating. Now that things calm down, I'll dig in more. I'm always working on and improving it. And it has a whole bunch of different elements, right? Some stuff that I've built to automate, whether it's, things like rate stats, like, yards after the catch or average depth of target, those kind of things feed in. I build ways to project those. There's stuff at the league level, the coach level, the team level, the player level, that goes into this. And there's also somewhat of a subjective element, which is projecting essentially carry shares and target shares, that kind of thing, playing time, and usage and volume. And that comes from, looking at the history of the player in the league and what makes sense based on who's on the roster, but also beat reports and injury news, whatever it may be. And that is every day we get new information. So every single day I'm tweaking little things. It could be the smallest thing. It could be half of a target to, a half of a point of a target share to a fullback, because there's reports that they're going to utilize the fullback more a little bit in the passing game. Everything like that. It's always evolving, always changing. That's why I'm constantly tweaking and updating based on the latest information. So again, we could do hours on this topic, but in a nutshell, that's basically it.
All right, good stuff. Let's get to the last segment here.
Get ready for GoingFor2.com's Forgotten Fantasy Player of the Week.
All right, Mike. So we've been doing this segment for almost 4 years now, Ryan. So we pretty much all of them. So I'm really curious as to what you went with here for your forgotten fantasy player.
Yeah, so I'm glad I went a little deep then on this one. Not a guy that was a standout necessarily, but he's very close to my heart. I named one of my columns after him when I was back at Pro Football Focus and took it with me to ESPN. And we haven't really used it much lately, but he's a friend of mine. He's become a friend of mine on Twitter over the years. And this guy is Jacob Tamme who was around. I mean, if you've been playing a long time, you know him. He played 9 seasons in the league. And where he really, you know, I got into the industry around 2009, 2010, in that kind of area when I first started digging in deep. And that was about the time when he had his big year, right? Around mid-season, Dallas Clark got injured, went on IR, and Jacob Tamme stepped in and was the number 2 scoring fantasy tight end the rest of the season. Yep. He never really was that dominant again. He had a couple seasons where he was like a tight end 2 with Denver and Atlanta, started for a while. He hung around a long time, but he really peaked then. But he inspired the Tamme Index, which was an article I used to do by position, which was, you know, what happens if the starter gets hurt? Is this guy a tight end 1, an RB1? Is he not worth rostering? And it kind of helps give you information, you know, essentially insurance or handcuffs worth taking in the later rounds. And also it's updated weekly and tells you, you know, what to do. If a guy goes down, you go check this chart. It tells you to pick up. So he inspired that. It was called the Tamme Index, kept it alive for a long time. And, you know, he's always a guy that I'll kind of attach part of my growth in the industry too. So I had to go there. I had to dig out Jacob Tamme.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. That's an awesome one. Because Ryan, remind me, I'm a little bit older than you. My memory's not quite as good. We haven't had Tamme before, have we? It's not. I don't know.
You better not have.
No, have we even had a tight end? Have we ever had a tight? I don't even know if we've had a tight end in 4 years.
Crumpler. I remember Algie Crumpler being the tight end that we had.
Okay, so you're the second tight end ever. Yeah, so that was fantastic.
There was one guy. I don't know if you know John Lobb on Twitter, but he always goes way back. He's been playing since I don't know, 1986 or something crazy like that.
I'm not that old. That's about when I was born.
Yeah,
he was doing it like newspaper style. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think he took Mark Duper as one of his guys one year. I'm like, man, you're going way back. All right, good stuff. That wraps the podcast up. Mike, I want to thank you once again for coming on, taking the time out of your day to come on here and summit with us for a little bit. Real quick, for those that don't know, I'm sure everybody does, but tell them where you go on Twitter and if you want to play what's going on right now.
Yeah, at Mike Clay NFL on Twitter. That's where I do, post most of my football work. So you can follow there, follow at ESPN.com, of course. And if you're watching this live tomorrow night, Thursday night, the schedule gets released for the NFL. We'll have a live digital show across all our digital platforms, whether they're YouTube, ESPN.com, and I believe it'll be on Twitter too. So we'll be doing that, a live digital show from the Fantasy Football Now studio. Me, Matthew, Daniel, Stefania. We'll have the Daily Wager crew out in Vegas too. We're going to be going back and forth, breaking it down from all the different angles. So looking forward to that. Nice. And then it's off and running toward all the off-season content. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Good stuff. All right, Mike. All right, Ryan, what you got going on?
First off, Mike, thanks a lot for coming on. Find me at Twitter, Foss534. Find me here every Wednesday night. Find me in the Dynasty Big Board podcast. We just started getting on YouTube now, so check that out. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, catch y'all next week.
All right, good stuff. As always, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. I did want to plug, if you go to my Twitter account right now, we are giving away in the Scott Fish Bowl 12. Basically, you just got to follow the YouTube channel and then retweet it into the top of my Twitter account there. Scott Fish will be on at the end of the month. I mentioned we're going to have Ryan McDowell, Hasley on next week, so make sure you look out for that show as well. For Mike, for Ryan, I'm Jeff. We will see y'all next week.